Shalom from Jerusalem. This is our Middle East. Al-Shaq al-Asad Lana Man. All of us together. Our region today is the Iranian octopus about to strangle Tel Aviv as it has spread its tentacles across Europe and the United States. We'll find out. This is Jihad in Jenin. I'm very honored to have Yoni Ben Menachem. You've been a guest on this program before, Yoni. We're in an emergency situation in Judea and Samaria, one of the heavily populated cities of Palestinian Arabs that the Palestinian Authority is supposed to control. They've lost complete control, and who's stolen their control? The Islamic Republic of Iran, by orders of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. You've been worrying about this for weeks, Yoni. This is no surprise for you.
Actually, I was worrying about it for the last 2 years. And, our Jerusalem Public Affairs Center published a few articles about it. And we were warning the political echelon of this process that is going to happen. But unfortunately, they didn't do anything to prevent it. I just want to tell you how the process started. It started after May 2021, after the operation of
Guardian of the
Walls in Gaza. The Iranians saw an opportunity to take control over the West Bank. And how did they do that? They took the Islamic Jihad organization headed by Ziad al-Nahali,
which is a branch office of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran.
Completely financed and supported by Iran. It's an Iranian affiliate. He was summoned to Tehran after the operation of the IDF in Gaza. And he met with General Hussein Salami, the head of the Revolutionary Guards, and with Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. And then they set the strategy of setting up what they call battalions of Mujahideen, of Islamic Jihad, in all the cities of the West Bank of Judea and Samaria, the Palestinian cities, of course. Since the infrastructure of Islamic Jihad is very strong in the north of Judea and Samaria, we're talking about Jenin, Nablus, and the Tulkarem area, so they're starting to set up these small groups. They started the small groups of battalions, and it was a small monster of terror, but it grew during the last 2 years. It grew to be a big monster. Today we're talking about, according to the estimation of the IDF and the Shabak and of the Shin Bet, we're talking about 2,000 armed terrorists in the north of Samaria, in these areas, equipped with weapons,
rockets.
They're building the infrastructure of rockets, laboratories to produce explosive devices. This infrastructure grew during the last 2 years, when Naftali Bennett was prime minister and when Yair Lapid was prime minister. And when these small groups were small, it was the right time to go into Jenin, go into Tulkarem, into Nablus, and hit them and eliminate the military infrastructure. But it was not done, apparently because of American pressure of the Biden administration. And both Bennett and Lapid and Gantz, as the defense minister, they settled for an IDF operation of arrest, daily arrest, which is called Shover HaGalim operation. And the Israeli army went every night to arrest wanted Palestinians in these areas of North Samaria. But of course, it was not enough to stop the terrorism. And what we see now is this big monster growing, becoming such a big monster.
This monster is an Iranian regime octopus,
right?
That basically metastasized since 1979, when Khamenei came back from Paris in order to mobilize millions of Iranians
For the Islamic Revolution.
For the Islamic Revolution, the IRGC and its foreign terror arm, the Quds Force, which means Jerusalem in Arabic, which they use on purpose because they use Jerusalem as talk about creating reality through language, through trying to coalesce and unite the entire Muslim world, Sunni and Shia, around the idea of the historic Jewish capital of the nation state of the Jewish people, in order to try to in a way embrace Iran, the Iranian regime's greatest enemy, which are the Sunni, which are the Sunni, even more than the Jews. So here they are in Jenin. I want to emphasize to our listeners and our viewers, this is not an intifada. This is not an uprising. This is a pincer movement in which the Iranian regime has planned for decades to surround Israel's major cities from the south, which it is doing through Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. They are outflanking Israel in the north from Hezbollah, Iranian-controlled Lebanon, and they control all of Lebanon. Let's be very clear. There's not just southern Lebanon. They control Lebanon, and they also control Syria, which is basically a puppet state of the Iranian regime.
And Iraq.
And Iraq through the special forces in Iraq. So here, this is a pincer movement to surround Israel, and the Iranian octopus is alive and well and digging its tentacles around Israel's major cities, above Israel.
Right.
Above Israel's major cities, 3,500 feet higher, because what is called the former West Bank of Jordan, Jenin, northern Samaria is much higher than the coastal cities. People don't realize that, and that's one of the major dangers to Israel's existence.
Yeah, I would add to what you said, that this is the strategy of Qasem Soleimani, who used to be the head of Quds Force, was assassinated by...
He was the head of IRGC, actually.
He was the head of the Quds Force. Qasem Soleimani was replaced by Ismail Kahani, which is the present commander of the Quds Force. Qasem Soleimani was assassinated by the American...
2020.
Yeah, in Iraq, in the airport of Baghdad. And I would add to what you mentioned, also the one that's trying to surround Israel also with even the Houthis in Yemen, not only by the militias, the Iranian pro-militias in Syria and Iraq and Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah, like you mentioned. We even have the Houthis in Yemen. So they are trying to build a ring surrounding Israel. Now, there's an interesting thing that we should talk about, and this is something that happened last week. There were two delegations, senior delegations of Islamic Jihad and Hamas visiting Tehran, meeting with Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, and also meeting with the senior officers of the Revolutionary Guards. And this guy, Ziad al-Nahala, the head of the Islamic Jihad, he goes out and gives an interview just 2 days ago to an Iranian news agency, and he's talking about, and he's meeting with Ali Khamenei, and discloses what was said in the meeting. And he said that he got orders from Ali Khamenei to have all the Palestinian cities he calls it the West Bank, of course, the Judea and Samaria, all the Palestinians, to equip them with weapons. And the Khamenei promised to finance the purchasing of these weapons to all the Palestinian cities in the West Bank in order to set up new battalions. New battalions, these are what we're talking about, armed groups of the Islamic Jihad in order to fight what they call the Zionist entity. And you were right when you said it's not an intifada, because most of the Palestinian population does not participate in this campaign of terror. It's only these small armed groups of the Islamic Jihad, and they are also financing some Fatah groups who are against Israel, are not part of the Palestinian Authority. Fatah groups, this is very important. They've joined the Islamic Jihad and Hamas and Popular Front. And these battalions, actually, the hardcore of these battalions is Islamic Jihad, but the Hamas and the Fatah and the Popular Front are joining the Islamic Jihad because they have the money. They are controlling the money and controlling the weapons. What also happened during the last 2 years is the smuggling of weapons from the Jordanian border. Iran is responsible for all these big quantities of weapons in the Judea of Samaria. They were smuggled through the Jordan. They came from Iran to Syria, from Syria to Jordan, from Jordan into the West Bank or Judea and Samaria.
You know, Yoni, what's extraordinary is that you hear virtually nothing coming from the Western powers calling on Mahmoud Abbas to take control, or you haven't heard this in the last weeks or the last months either, of the territories that he was mandated to take control. That he had the weapons, he had American training, American and
General
Dayton and others, special military coordinators, trained them in Jordan, and they have absolutely failed in their mission. And here Israel, this is exactly the underpinning, the security underpinning of the Oslo Accords. And you hear nothing. You hear even no condemnation by Mahmoud Abbas or anybody around him about the takeover by Iran.
This is the big lie of the Palestinians, because they are coming out in the media and saying that it's Israel's fault. What is happening in Judea and Samaria now, it's Israel's fault. Why is it Israel's fault? Because Israel is going into areas A, according to Oslo, which are the major Palestinian cities, and confronting the armed terrorists. But actually, according to Oslo, the responsibility of fighting terrorism is on the PA itself, not on Israel. They were supposed to fight these armed groups, which they didn't. Mahmoud Abbas has 30,000 armed forces, armed personnel, that he could have used to prevent these terror attacks. He didn't do anything. He doesn't want to confront these armed groups in the north of Samaria. Why doesn't he want to do that? Because he is afraid to lose his chair, or lose his regime. This is why he's not doing anything. He doesn't want to confront them. So on one hand, he doesn't do anything about preventing terrorism. On the other hand, he blames Israel for the responsibility for what is happening.
Yeah,
that's the big lie.
Absolutely. And for our friends in Europe, the Jihad in Jenin, the Iranian octopus's tentacles wrapping themselves just over Israel's major cities, it has also hit European cities. Remember, we just came back from London, accompanying the intelligence minister of Israel, Gila Gamliel, and we were receiving also, it's clear reports that there have been 15 assassination attempts by the same IRGC, the same Quds force that is now attacking Israel and over, eyeing Ben Gurion Airport with rockets and with other weaponry above Tel Aviv. It's the same force that has planned and executed assassination attempts and other terror attacks on European soil against the United Kingdom and against Germany and against Belgium. So this is the same discourse, Yoni Ben Menachem, that we discussed in the 2006 war, why Israel had to win that war for the West. This is a war for the West. This is a war for freedom. This is not just a narrow counterterrorism operation in order to prevent extremists who want to, screw up the peace process between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. It's a much bigger war for the freedom of Israel, for the freedom of the West and Europe and the United States by extension.
Yeah. I think that Mahmoud Abbas perfectly understand, Abu Mazen Mahmoud Abbas, he understands perfectly well that it's the Iranians who want to take control over the Judea and Samaria, over the West Bank, and not the Islamic Jihad only, because Iran is behind it. And this is a big danger for the PA, and still he doesn't do anything about it. So this is something which is very worrying.
But the last power in the world, I didn't mean to interrupt you, the last power in the world who wants a Palestinian state is the Islamic Republic of Iran, which people, right, with the absurd discourse in the West is that they somehow accuse Israel of building housing starts in areas under its control, which was signed, sealed, and delivered by witness guarantors from the United Nations to the European Union to Egypt, Norway, and Russia. And yet the real cause and the real obstacle to any kind of potential diplomatic outcome, besides the Palestinians themselves shooting themselves in the head all the time, is the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's the last thing they would allow to happen. And this is exactly why they're there. They're also there to destroy Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, kill Israel, and allow what they call, here's another distortion of language, the resistance network, otherwise known as the global terror movement, in order to plant their poisonous seeds inside Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as the former West Bank of Jordan.
Yeah, and another aspect of what the Iranian strategy is trying to turn the Judea and Samaria and the north of Samaria into something like Gaza Script. They want to set up an infrastructure for producing rockets that will be launched from the north of the West Bank towards Afula, towards other cities in Israel. And actually, during the operation in Gaza a few weeks ago, the head of the Shin Bet, Ronen Bar, he said publicly that the Shin Bet thwarted a few terrorist cells in the Jenin area that were actually making preparations to produce these rockets that will be launched towards Afula and Hedera and other places in the north of Israel. This is something very dangerous. And in the IDF operation this morning in Jenin, the IDF soldier already found one rocket launcher in Jenin itself. So there are preparations on the way, and this is why this IDF operation in Jenin is very important to prevent any infrastructure for producing rockets, and also to eliminate these laboratories that are producing big explosive devices, exactly like they do in Gaza. So this is a very important operation.
The Palestinian public in other areas in Gaza and in other areas under the Palestinian Authority's supposed control, you haven't seen any sort of major spreading of any kind of popular violence or things of that sort here, do you? I mean, you haven't seen a major response.
No. The danger is the north of the Judea and Samaria. These three cities, Jenin, Nablus, and Tulkarem, the Islamic Jihad during the last 2 years have managed to build a strong infrastructure and take over these cities. And they are controlling. When we say Islamic Jihad, we're actually saying Iran. Iran is controlling Jenin, Nablus, and Tulkarem. And this is very dangerous.
Yeah, so we'll add that to the list of other controlled cities like Beirut and Baalbek. And, the Iranians and their poodles, the Hezbollah, have been provoking Israel over the last weeks. We see they set up outposts on Israeli territory, on the Israeli side of the blue line with Lebanon. Israel chose to hold back and not respond forcefully.
Trying diplomatically to kick them out, but it hasn't been successful so far. They cleared one tent and they moved the people that were in that tent to the other tent, but they're still there. So this is a matter of time until this thing will explode, because eventually, if the diplomatic effort of Israel to make them withdraw will not succeed, Israel will have to do something militarily to kick them out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to tell our viewers and hopefully if American officials listen to this program, that there's an issue here of Israel having to maintain defensible borders for itself. I mean, that concept came after the 1967 war, which, in which Israel expanded its defensibility, its defensibility, because topographically we were able to expand our defensive, the land mass that we had. Israel's a very, very small country, and in Jenin, in the northern Samaria, as we call it, which overhangs Israel's major cities, Israel's major infrastructure, Israel's major highways, Israel's major cities, including Ben Gurion Airport, by the way. This is what is not spoken about. In defensible borders, we have got to have some topographical advantage, because we don't have strategic depth. We have borders that are very narrow. We have Israel, as people watching this program know, have borders that are 9 miles wide at their narrowest point between the borders of Judea and the non-border or the lines of Judea and Samaria as to the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah, I have to tell you something on a personal note that I was very happy to hear Prime Minister Netanyahu this week saying that we have to strengthen the power of the PA, but no independent Palestinian state, because I think Netanyahu is very right about what he said. An independent Palestinian state is a danger to Israel, because what will happen? We will have an Iranian independent state in the north of Syria.
Another
we will not have an independent Palestinian state. And what is happening the last 2 years only proves that we cannot trust the PA, because they're not fighting against terrorism. So what is expected from Israel? To commit a security suicide and allow the Iranians to take over Judea and Samaria so they can launch rockets towards us?
More than that, Yoni, the Jihad in Jenin right now poses a strategic danger to the entire Middle East. It's not just Israel. People must understand that this foothold that the Islamic Republic of Iran and their Quds Force terror operatives have placed inside the refugee camps and the alleyways of Jenin with rocket factories and developing drones and explosive devices and mortars and machine guns, all of which are complete contravention of Oslo, pose a direct threat to the entire region. Because if Israel has to go in and deepen this counterterrorism campaign, it's going to have far-reaching effects on the entire Middle East.
Exactly. This is a great danger. And I think that there's now an Israeli effort. Last night there was a meeting. Prime Minister Netanyahu, he called the Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and the Chief of Staff and other senior officials in the Israeli army to discuss ways to strengthen the Palestinian Authority. So Israel is trying to revive the PA in order for it to take control of the north of Samaria and also to fight against terrorism.
This is something that as an analyst, I simply fail to understand. The PA is a problem. It's not the solution. It's proven itself that it's not the solution. It's a problem. So there is this ongoing debate in Israel about strengthening the PA security forces. There is cooperation between Israel's...
Yeah, but now it's becoming also an American request, official request from Israel to strengthen the PA. So Netanyahu is responding positively to the request of President Biden, and Israel is trying to find ways to strengthen it. But Abu Mazen or Mahmoud Abbas, he has to help himself. He has to understand that the problem is not Israel. The problem is Iran, which is a big danger for him first before Israel.
And it's the same Mahmoud Abbas that spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year of Israeli tax, Israeli what they call envelope, pass-through payments that Israel collects, that Mahmoud Abbas and his senior advisory staff have created a terror incentive annuity called Pay for Slay, which is not, as some far-left Jewish organizations have said, are Social Security payments. This is a separate terror line item in the PA budget that incentivizes young Palestinians to go out and kill Israelis. And so on the one hand, here you have Abu Mazen inciting to murder the very people he now is complaining about, that is taking over territories that he's supposed to maintain law and order and peace. It's an absurdity. So to strengthen Mahmoud Abbas would be to strengthen the source of the problem, not the source of the solution.
Yeah, but this is a diplomatic game, and Israel has to play by the rules of the international community. So I think the Israeli government now is trying to maneuver, to do what it can do, trying to straighten up the PA, but we know it's a lost cause. Nothing will come out of it. This is absurd. This morning, 7 terrorists were killed in Jenin, Islamic Jihad. They were killed by the IDF during the clashes there. These terrorists were operating first to topple Abu Mazen regime. And the absurd is that now their families will be paid by the PA.
Yeah, that's right. Those who are killed today in Jenin, who favor the toppling of the same Palestinian Authority, who will then pay them cash annuity payments for life,
right?
Because they sacrificed their life their lives for the sake of jihad, for the sake of Palestine, quote unquote.
For the sake of Iran.
And for this, and now really, as you say very well, Yoni Ben Menachem, for the sake of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So you can't really make this up. This is so absurd. But this is exactly what the West needs to understand. I think the Israeli body politic has come to understand that Israel is not in a territorial war. It is in a war for its very existence, and people have difficulty understanding that because Israel looks very strong, we do have a strong defense force, and we're a very well-trained army. But let's be very clear: Iran is many, many times the size of Israel and is surrounded Israel, outflanked Israel in a pincer movement.
Yeah, and we have to break this circle. We have to find a way to fight this thing. And I think that what is happening now is very important because finally, after 2 years of this terror monster growing slowly and becoming a big monster, as we see now in the north of Samaria, finally the Israeli army, or let's say political echelon, is taking the initiative. After the governments of Bennett and Lapid didn't do anything to fight this phenomenon.
Well, where does that leave us in terms of why the IDF is, it appears, according to reports, as we're sitting in the podcast here in the studio, headline reports come across the cell phone screens saying that Israel apparently is going to end, or this is according to reports anyway, to end the counterterrorism operation after a day or two. But it doesn't seem possible to do the necessary what you would say, cleaning out the poisonous nest of Iranian-backed terror in a day or two.
Definitely. What was needed actually was to recruit reserves and take one Israeli division, IDF division, and reoccupy for a limited period of time all the north of Samaria. I'm talking about Jenin, Nablus, and Tulkarem for 2-3 weeks, and clean the infrastructure of terror, and then withdraw and make the PA forces go into these areas. But apparently, from a diplomatic point of view, it's very difficult to do it now. So I think the political echelon chose to concentrate now on the capital of terrorism, the Iranian terrorism in the West Bank, in the Judea and Samaria, which is Jenin. And they will try to do a very limited operation and see what the results, but I'm sure that in the future, as you said, there will be no other choice but to go and do a large-scale operation in the north of Samaria.
Fighting jihad in Jenin on behalf of the free world. That's really what we're doing here, Yoni Ben Menachem. Your analyses are precise, concise, and insightful. We really thank you for showing us some context here. This is an important concept. Israel is fighting for its own well-being, its own survival, its own stability and security, but also for the security and well-being of the Western world from the hills of northern Samaria.
Against the Iranian octopus.
Against the Iranian octopus. And there you have it. I think we've put a punctuation mark, an exclamation mark on this program. Yoni Ben Menachem, Arab Affairs and National Security Analyst with the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. I'm Dan Diker, President of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. We invite our viewers and listeners to come to jcpa.org and get all the latest and greatest analyses that are right on the top of the site by Yoni and others in the center on Iran, on the Iranian octopus, on the ongoing war against Iranian attempted regional and ultimately, as Professor Bernard Lewis said, global domination. And please come and join us every week on Our Middle East, Al-Shaq Al-Sadlana. It is Our Middle East, all of us, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Alawis, Alawites, Turkomans, Baluchis, you name it. And Druze. We have so many different communities across the Middle East. That's what we try to do on the show, is to really reveal the richness, the complexity of the entire Middle East. And Jenin plays its little part in what we hope will be the security, stability, and prosperity of the Middle East, and to destroy the root of this evil regime that is killing its own people with the same fervor that it is attempting to kill off the nation state of the Jewish people. They will not succeed. I'm confident in that. Yoni Ben Menachem, Thank you ever so much for joining us on Our Middle East.
Thank you for having us.